said, we're going to talk a little bit about our middle school programs. We have a couple of workshops that we run for middle schoolers. But first of all, I just want to let you know kind of what we do. So our purpose, the purpose of Bottom of the Box is to provide education of soft skills, things that we don't normally see students learning in school, but which are really, really important for life. And the two that we focus on heavily are resilience and leadership. So our focus is resilience because we believe everybody can be resilient. We all have it in us. Sometimes we just need to be reminded of how to access it. So we all have the capability to overcome hardships in life and improve our lives and improve the lives of others around us. And the same thing goes with leadership. Our take on leadership is that it goes hand in hand with resilience, and that it is also something that we all do. Okay, we all lead. Whenever you talk to somebody or you write a letter or you act in public, you act in a way where people can see what you're doing, you're leading by your example, by your words, by the tone that you set. So the programs that we have three main programs, all focused on students working together with the teachers to learn and grow. So there's our Rising Sixth Grader workshop, which is primarily for students entering middle school for the first time. Our Resilience and Leadership workshop, which is for 7th and 8th graders, which focuses more heavily on the resilience and leadership aspects of the program. The Rising Sixth Grader workshop kind of tends to do a lot more with organization and helping the kids get through some of the challenges of middle school. And the third program is what we call our Promethean Ambassador program. And that program is for students who are in high school or in 8th grade. And really the focus is more of a long-term, it's like a year-round program where students and teachers will meet a couple times a month over the course of a year. The students work together on passion projects and internships, and they really are primarily focused on learning together how to lead with humility and grace, and also work on their individual and collective resilience, building that up. And a lot of the things we do in that program really focuses very heavily on what's going to be required when they apply to college and when they get to college as well. So a lot of times we have people asking us, well, what's different about us? And the way that we teach is very, very different. It's really focused on teaching in a way that is more organic. The students are going to be more likely to remember the things that they learn in our workshops. First of all, a lot of the exercises that we do with the students, they come out of the scientific literature on resilience and the psychology of resilience. We provide exercises that are proven to increase a person's sense of hope and their outlook on life, and thus their resilience. And we make them fun. When we look at leadership, we're using proven leadership training techniques to introduce the students to various aspects of leadership. We provide a very safe space where students can be themselves. It's very important to us that the students can speak up, say what's on their mind, what they think, how they feel. And so we provide a very, very nurturing space that allows each student to be themselves. We're also very focused on telling our own stories and the stories of guest speakers to the students. But what we believe is that the students, and what we've seen is that the students are much more likely to engage with us and listen if we're real. And so a lot of our stories involve our own vulnerabilities. They involve us talking about challenges that we've had in our lives and how we made it through those challenges. And, the bottom line really is that in all the times that I've talked with teenagers and given talks at high schools, and the work that Julie has done, we've both seen that students, especially teenagers, do not need to hear how great adults are. They don't need to hear about all the accomplishments we've racked up in our lives. What they need to do is see us as vulnerable. They need to see us vulnerable. They need to hear how we stumbled and fell and learn how we managed to get up and keep going forward. We do a lot of group exercises. The students work together with each other and with the instructors to learn in a kind of a collaborative environment. A lot more learning goes on than reading things in a book or being lectured to. The family is involved. Each step of the way in our programs, the parents and the guardians know what we're doing because they become involved in it. The students will often come home with homework to do with their parents, be it sitting down and discussing a topic together, or telling a story about something that happened in your day and how you overcame a hardship or accomplished something difficult. We involve the family, and what we've heard, what we've seen is that the families really like this aspect of the program. They feel connected to what their student is doing during the day with us. And so we get a lot of bang for our buck out of that. The next two things really have to do with the students, in a way, learning in a very organic environment. We're not lecturing them. They're coming to many conclusions by themselves. They're discussing things with us, discussing things with their peers. And the result is that we have more of an anti-lecture, we call it. It's an inverse ratio. In most school environments, the teacher does the bulk of the talking with the students answering questions. It's the reverse for us. We also get a lot of questions about why would you want to do this with sixth graders? So the reasons are pretty simple, and I've got three of them, why we have a Rising Sixth Grader workshop, and they're sort of similar. And really, it is about change. When you think about it, and you'll see as I talk through this, the transition from elementary school to middle school involves an enormous amount of change for teenagers. It's probably the greatest period of change in a person's life. There are social changes. They go to a bigger school. They go to multiple classes. They're exposed to a lot more people, and their friend network expands commensurately. School is harder in middle school. There's just no question about it. There are grades that matter. There are homework assignments. There are speeches that need to be given. There's a lot more work that needs to be done, and that's an enormous change. There are family changes that occur. Typically, when you transition from elementary school to middle school, the parents will take a step back and give the student some space. And that's a pretty big change as well. There are geographic changes. The students are going to be not only going to a different school in most situations, they will be arriving there under their own power independently a lot of the time on a bus or some other transport. But also outside of school, at this age, they're going to gather more friends, and their geographic sort of region that they inhabit is going to grow, right? They're going to be going further afield on their own, outside of the neighborhood, maybe even outside of the town, to be with friends. So it's a big change. And of course, we all know there's neurological changes that occur during this part of life. Really, between 6th and 8th grade, that's why we like to say you're looking at the greatest amount of change in a human being's life, especially in the society that we live in. Between 6th and 8th grade, that is where the bulk of the changes are occurring. Our solution for this is very precise, very targeted. Each of the workshops, either the Rising Sixth Grader or the 6th, 7th, the Resilience and Leadership workshop, the students get 20 hours of group instruction with a very low teacher to student ratio. We spend 30 minutes one-on-one, at least 30 minutes one-on-one with each and every student. And that is to give them personalized advice, to talk over things that they want to talk about, address issues, concerns, fears, whatnot, excitement about school. We talk about these things with them in a one-on-one setting so they can feel comfortable expressing themselves with us. They bring home homework. There's home practice for them to work on at home and then bring back and share with the group each day. And of course, I mentioned before, there's these family exercises that we will send them home with several times during the workshop to sit down and work through with the parents and even the other siblings. This is a sort of a picture of what the workshop looks like for the rising sixth graders. It's a lot of stuff that we go through. So I'm going to start over here on the right. So on the right side is all of our middle school prep, and on the left side is our resilience and leadership work. So for middle school prep, we're looking at organization, communication, advocacy, and socialization. So for organization is probably one of the biggest challenges for new students to middle school. They go from an environment in elementary school where everything is largely organized for them to a new environment where they are expected to take charge of their own learning in a way. So we introduce the students to a variety of thoughts and tools that are useful to all of us in our lives. And the first one, of course, it might sound a little silly, but just the basic checklist, the basic to-do list. Yes, it's something that you might use to go get your groceries, but it's also used by surgeons, by NASA astronauts. Whenever we send a rover to Mars, there's a checklist that makes sure the thing is going to get there alive and sending telemetry back. So the checklist is used the world over to organize. So we teach them how to use a checklist in their life and how to organize the things that they need to do, be it each day or week or month, whatever the case may be. We help them to focus on how to stay organized with a very simple tool first. Next, we work with them on schedules. We show them how to use a schedule on, an iPhone or an Android phone or on a computer. We introduce them to a couple of scheduling sort of softwares and show them how they can schedule things and set up, times when they're going to study, organize their days so that they're a lot more effective in their learning. The other thing we introduce them to, which is down in the lower right picture there, is to the physical binder. When they get to middle school, even though we're moving toward a paperless world, there's still quite a bit of paper that they accumulate, and many of them still like to take notes and draw pictures by hand, but they also accumulate, information that the school sends to them on paper that they need to bring home to the parents for signature, notes, various other organizational items. They need to learn to carry these things in a binder and organize themselves so they can get to the paper that they need for their studies. So we show them how to use a binder, and this is actually a pretty fun aspect of it. The kids tend to get pretty into it because they can decorate their binder and they can make it their own. So it's a fun activity, but also shows them how to be organized with sort of physical items. The other thing that we work on is the notion of that organizational attitude, right? Big one is banishing procrastination. We work with them on understanding what procrastination is, why it exists, why people can fall into that stumble over that pitfall. And we work with them on coming up with strategies to create habits, lasting habits that help them to avoid procrastination. We also work with them on taking responsibility. Taking responsibility for their learning is what they need to start to do at this age. And so we work with them quite heavily on taking responsibility for learning. And this next section is our communication section. In middle school, students are expected to do a lot more communicating, be it writing, speaking in front of the class, answering questions. They're going to be expected to do that. And in middle school, really the focus for communication is on confident self-expression. If you can express yourself with confidence, you're a lot more effective person, and you feel a lot better about yourself. So we work with the students on writing, and very specifically on writing about themselves. This is something they don't tend to do in elementary school, but there's more and more of it in middle school. And when you get to high school, there's even more, be it reading a book and giving your opinion, or talking about something in your own life and connecting it to, some other topic in school. This is a really, really important aspect of middle school, high school, and finally, when they apply to college, most of your college essays, which are absolutely critical for getting into a good school, the students are writing about themselves. The kids that write a good college essay that help them to get into a good school, they know how to write about themselves. They know how to tell their story. This is really, really critical. Public speaking is something that, again, they're expected to do in middle school. They learn more and more about it. But again, we focus on speaking from the perspective of your own thoughts, student expressing what they have in their head, getting it out to a group of people. And that's a very effective way for both teaching public speaking, but also for learning, how to express yourself verbally in many other situations. And what we find is that self-expression, when students can express themselves clearly and confidently, they become a lot more independent. And again, those are the kids that are a lot more successful in high school and then in college. This next one is a really, really big one, asking for help. It's really about self-advocacy, and it's something that we see students stumbling on a lot. It's hard for them to ask for help, but it's incredibly critical. Again, the students that are successful, who overcome challenges, be it a hard class or a test that they didn't do as well on as they expected, they're able to advocate for themselves. One of the things that we work on is changing their view of the teacher. The teachers are not there to just dump things onto them, and they're not there to hold their hands, but by and large, teachers want to help. And we essentially teach them, how to approach a situation where they want to ask for help, and help them to understand that by and large, people who are teachers, they actually like it when somebody shows up and asks for help. When you ask for help and you show that you want to learn, that's a teacher's dream. And we help them to come to understand that. We also help them with the notion of acquiring information, advocating for themselves with their friends. Some friends are good at different things, and so they can go to different people for, help with different things, as well as when they're expressing themselves in their own friendships as to, what they want out of the friendship. We help them with that. We also approach the notion of parents having perspective as well. It's hard for teenagers to talk to their parents about things, but if they can get to the point where they can say, hey, this is how I think, it's a very powerful growth point for them. Finally, we work on socialization, maintaining friendships and making new friends. So socialization is still happening in middle school. It's a fallacy that this is done by the time you get to middle school. At this point, they're teenagers and they are turning into the adults that they will one day be. This is a lengthy process, and a lot of it has to do with socialization. Again, between 6th and 8th grade, a lot of changes, but also probably one of the greatest social leaps that will happen in a person's life. They're exposed to many more people, and they will choose their own friends. Sometimes for the first time, they will choose the people that they want to hang out with. They will have a larger circle of friends. And most importantly, there's the notion of, even if you have a lot of friends, there's still sort of a greater risk of isolation, because they're all changing and they're all kind of becoming who they're going to be, and trying to express who they are, and still find friends who they can be with and be comfortable with. It can be challenging. So what we focus on Some of the stuff we do has elements of the social emotional learning framework, parts that we find useful and organic. A big aspect of what we do is social network awareness. We help them to look at their social network, not from the perspective of, oh, how many people I have on Facebook, but looking at, okay, who are my friends? And in what various contexts are these people my friends? And so knowing who is in their social network, and not just friends, it could be family members, it can be teachers, it can be mentors, they build this up. And what we found is that when students can put that down on paper and express, okay, Mary is the person who helps me with math, and I want to do something for her because she's helped me with math for so long. Things like this, when they come to these conclusions and they realize, okay, this is what this person is like, and this is how I interact with this other person, they're a lot stronger and they're a lot more aware of their whole sort of world that they're creating, their social world. Of course, we talk about the notion of being popular versus being yourself. This is a huge aspect of being a teenager, that constant sort of push between those two parts of yourself, wanting to be a part of a group, but also wanting to be yourself. And so we do have discussions about that and how how to kind of navigate that sort of challenging aspect of middle school. Finally, we work with the students on the notion that, again, they're going to be choosing their own friends, that they're in the driver's seat. And so there's a certain amount of responsibility with that as well. And we go over that in quite a bit of detail. Now, at this point, we're kind of out of the middle school prep. And if we go over to the left side here, we're looking at our resilience and leadership training, which is integrated in throughout the workshop. So the first thing of importance to sort of reiterate is that we see resilience and leadership as going together, okay? They're synergistic. If you think about it, strong leaders, good strong leaders tend to be resilient people. They tend to be people who are overcome things and are confident. And the same thing in reverse. The resilient, by way of their actions, tend to be strong leaders just by way of telling their story even. So we find these feed into each other and we get a lot of power out of that. So for resilience, our take is that resilience is buildable. As I said before, we all have it. We all have the ability to overcome challenges and make the life and the society that we want. Sometimes we need to be reminded that that's the case, that we have that capacity, and sometimes we need to be reintroduced to the tools that we need to be resilient. So some of the things that we address in the Rising Sixth Grader workshop are things like gratitude. Gratitude is huge with respect to resilience. People who can effectively show and express gratitude are by and large more hopeful, happy, and resilient than others. And so we have a number of exercises to sort of build up and create a habit of gratitude. Again, we work on expression of self, very important for resilience. People who can express who they are, how they think, and they're just more resilient. They're stronger and they're more confident. Same thing with the network. Support and friend network, very important for resilience. And so we take this and help them to build out their network, define it, show what it's like, show who is where in their network. And this builds up resilience. It builds up quite a bit of confidence. Another thing that we're very big on is diversity. And sometimes we get this question about why we're still doing Zoom sessions. The reason we're still doing Zoom sessions is that we realized something. When we moved from doing in-person classes to Zoom classes last year with the start of the pandemic, something really incredible happened. Suddenly, we were bringing kids together from all over the country. And even just all over the Bay Area or all over California is a big, big difference from just having a bunch of kids in Palo Alto trying to learn together. We found that with this diversity came perspective and a lot more openness. The kids seemed to get more out of it when they were hearing, oh, what's it like for the kid that lives in Chicago? We had a kid from Chicago last summer. We also had a student who lives in Newport News. I think it's Virginia. His parents work on those big naval ships, and that was an interesting thing to hear about. So we find that this type of diversity really is a good thing. So this is a learning point for us as a result of the pandemic. We come to leadership. We're also of the opinion that this is learnable and it's teachable to young people, right? It's very teachable. And if you learn young how to be a leader, you're just going to have a lot more strength. You're going to have a lot more possibilities in your life. Since again, we all lead all the time. So we focus on public speaking. We focus on working with others effectively. We also work on self-advocacy and advocacy for others. These are incredibly important, okay? Advocacy is absolutely paramount for strong, effective leadership, both self-advocacy and advocacy for others, okay? When we self-advocate, we are saying what kind of life we want to lead. And when we advocate for others, we are declaring the kind of society that we want to live in. So advocacy is incredibly important for leadership, and we focus quite heavily on that with the students. And here we see, we're going to go back out. And so we have our Rising Sixth Grader workshop, and just want to give you a glimpse of our 7th and 8th grade workshop. What the difference is here is that with this, we're taking a deep dive into resilience and into leadership. We're not working on the sort of organizational, how to manage your time, school, and all that we did with the Rising Sixth Grader workshop. With this workshop, we're focused heavily on resilience and leadership, and we go through a huge number of aspects of resilience and aspects of leadership, and we work with them on things like, again, more gratitude, but we also work on having a sense of purpose and being able to tell your own stories of triumph. And in the leadership area, we talk about accepting, positive, constructive criticism and giving constructive criticism. We talk about morale. We talk about, analyzing strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats. So we give them a really deep view of these two really critical areas of soft skill. So the Rising Sixth Grader workshop, again, we see it as education for life. We see it as teaching and building on soft skills that kind of tend not to be addressed in regular schooling. Again, Rising Sixth Grader, organizational skills, self-expression, self-advocacy, socialization, resilience, and then leadership. Those are the areas that we hit during that workshop. And for the 7th and 8th graders, again, we're looking at resilience and leadership, but a deep, deep dive in there, looking at many subtopics and helping them to build up those soft skills with various exercises.